So our fifth question is, should we accept that the legalization of assisted suicide is inevitable? Well, in short, I want to say that no, I don't think that we should believe it's inevitable that assisted suicide will be legalized. This, of course, depends on a number of complicated factors that are not necessarily possible to foresee. But there is quite a long history of rejecting assisted suicide legislation in the UK. However, we might be concerned by the fact that support in the population from polling results suggests a large number of people support assisted suicide, at least in principle. And what seems to be of primary importance, I think, is the link between non-assisted suicide and assisted suicide, because supporters of assisted suicide tend to reject any connection with non-assisted suicide. So I think the first question is how assisted suicide is viewed in the culture, and it seems clear, for example, that assisted suicide is often referred to euphemistically in the English-speaking world. So we have sort of preferred terms are things like assisted dying, voluntary assisted dying, as it's used in Australia, or medical aid in dying, as is the preferred term in Canada, which of course also involves euthanasia as well. And this suggests that avoiding talk about it as suicide is helpful to the case for legalizing assisted suicide. And this, I think, is borne out when we see that support in polls can change by up to 20% based on difference of wording in those polls. And for anyone that's interested particularly in that, if you look at section 3 of our Euthanasia and Assisted Suicide Evidence Guide on our website, you'll see some of the studies that look at that particular aspect of the question. So it's easy to quote polling statistics, but I think it's important to be skeptical about what they actually indicate. And it's worth, I think, just saying a word about the Assisted Suicide Act 1961, as amended by the Coroners and Justice Act 2009. Suicide is not illegal, but what remains illegal, however, is to encourage or assist suicide. The legalization of assisted suicide would therefore involve rendering this no longer an offence. And this fleetingly cuts through any euphemistic talk about assisted dying. In the 2021 Assisted Dying Bill, which is a private member's bill in the House of Lords proposed by Baroness Meacher, that bill refers only once to the word suicide, and that's in relation to amending the 1961 Suicide Act, decriminalising assisting someone in accordance with the Assisted Dying Bill. So in other words, the bill cements the otherwise obscured link between assisted dying and assisted suicide. So a lot depends, I think, on making it very clear what we're talking about. And I think so long as the question of assisted suicide can be seen as part of the larger concerns in suicide prevention strategies, we may say that the legalization of assisted suicide is not necessarily a foregone conclusion.
Do you think that part of the problem is that those who are in favour of assisted dying say that there is a distinction? People who commit suicide, take their own life, are not dying, but their bill is aimed at people who they say are dying because they've got this diagnosis of terminal illness within 6 months. And that's perhaps how they would sort of distinguish the two.
Yes, I think that's right. The difficulty, of course, is that not everyone who commits suicide by non-assisted suicide is not suffering from a terminal illness. And of course, there's also the difficulty, as one sees in countries where assisted suicide is legalized, of the numbers of people who are committing non-assisted suicide because they don't fall under the criteria for assisted suicide. So it kind of pushes that question to the fore for them. So that seems to me to be a problematic distinction. I think it's very, very important that we reinforce the relationship between what's called assisted dying and assisted suicide.
Oh, and certainly in the government prevention strategies about suicide, if you're fit and well, we want to prevent your suicide. If you show any signs of illness, we want to encourage you. That seems to be how the debate is going.
Yeah.